Well, it's funny how things happen that you least expect when you least expect them. I've just watched a video by Dutchsinse, a well-known earthquake forecaster or predictor, and when you look at his video list is in the hundreds. I mean, it has not been idle, not by any stretch of the imagination. As you can see, it's just pages and pages and pages. He's been doing it for a very long time. And initially, I thought to myself, he's got something here. He actually knows what he's talking about. And I told myself that regular geologists, if there was such a thing, because everybody's a specialist in one way or another, I thought to myself, well, maybe regular geologists are too buried in their current focus to be able to see the overall trends of the day. I don't know, didn't think about it. But then I didn't fully understand why Dutch would go out on a limb talking about mimic when the display isn't really faulted. It's an old generation display on the mimic pages, looking at the total water, total precipitable water in the atmosphere, and it's done over a whole day. It's a very slow process. There's an awful lot of data gathered together, and then a lot of photos or images are overlaid and worked out in small cells. This results in certain times of the day of aberrations, but Dutch focused on the aberrations and complained and suggested that they were, oh, I don't know, weapons beaming up from the South Pole. If you've ever been to the South Pole, you'll know that's the last place where you'd put such a weapon. But suggested it was weapons, and I think that earned him, to some extent, the fear-mongering side of things, where he would come to conclusions that were just totally, they were his own imagination, and they were working, in my opinion, against the man. I've got nothing against the man himself. I just want to focus on the science. What annoyed me in the end with Dutch was that he was using scientific sounding phrases that weren't at all scientific. And I took him to task over these because I never got a response or anything like that. So I was on his Dutch official Twitch channel today, and I didn't see him there. I then went onto the website and I missed a broadcast, and he wasn't there either. And I got myself thinking, so I thought, is it possible to predict earthquakes? And one of the problems is it's not impossible to predict earthquakes. There are people predicting earthquakes all day and every day. And in the greater part of the very highly populated west coast of America, earthquake prediction is a very, very real and very, very accurate science. And it can shave seconds or even up to a minute or so off the warning, so that firemen can get out of the fire station, schools and colleges and universities can get out of the classrooms, and all that good stuff. Earthquake prediction for the next 30 seconds is a very viable and very much needed and very definite science. There's no hickory-jickory about it whatsoever. They see an earthquake start somewhere along the fault line, and the equipment monitors its rate of progression, speed over time, speed, distance over time, and from that they translate that into a forecast for further downstream where the earthquake's going to hit, straightforward. Dutch was doing something different, and in my heart I hope he never actually gives up. I would like him to focus, and I would like him to change his vocabulary. For example, predicting earthquakes. Everybody tells you, go to any serious page, you cannot predict earthquakes, and by that I mean you can't say that in next Tuesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon there's going to be an M4.0 and it's going to happen right in the centre, the geographical centre of Afghanistan. That kind of earthquake forecast cannot be done. There's no way current science allows that to happen. And in part that's because we've got no idea exactly what's going on in the deepest part of the planet. Yes, the scientists and the earthquake people have got a very good handle on it, and they will tell you that an earthquake isn't a single thing. It's a complicated collection of various layers of strata moving in different directions for different periods of time as the earthquake propagates through the surface, propagates through the ground to get to the surface. It's not instant, bang, that was an earthquake. It doesn't happen like that. It's a crunchy series of continuous changing effects until the earthquake has been complete. And that's not so easy to detect. And you can't say that this earthquake now is going to produce another quake over there in half an hour's time, or a day's time, or a week's time. Because one of the things we don't see with all our very sensitive monitoring equipment is any noises of any kind that link one location to another location. Dutch once used the phrase as a railroad train over a trestle bridge, and you can hear it coming. What we don't see is that railroad train going from earthquake here to earthquake over there. Earthquake prediction. It is a science, it's a very accurate science. Earthquake prediction, according to the wiki, is the science of seismology concerned with the specification of time, location and magnitude of future earthquakes within stated limits. And then it goes on to do the limits. USGS, the big guys, very well funded. An awful lot of people have a livelihood 100% dependent upon the United States Geology Service. They say, can you predict earthquakes? No, straight flat out. Neither the USGS nor other scientists have ever predicted a major earthquake. That to me sounds like a phrase that's been written to meet a very specific agenda. The USGS is part of a very, very large financial element, and they will not say things lightly without fear of impacting upon that financial benefit. We do not know, and we do not expect to know, how any time in the foreseeable future an earthquake prediction must define three elements: date and time, location and magnitude. Boy, are they really nailing it down. So there's no wishy-washy. We can't say there's going to be an earthquake sometime in the next 7 days. Oh no, that's not fair. We can say there's going to be an earthquake next Tuesday at 3:30. It's ridiculous. It looks like they set themselves up to hang a person that wants to go against the stream and have a solution for that. Instead of being an earthquake forecaster or an earthquake predictor, if you were to take existing data which is available direct from the USGS and look at it, look at data that we've got right now on the map and say, do you know, looking at this data and looking at the historic data, I would say there's a high probability of a magnitude 3, 4 or 5 occurring in this area within the next 4 days. They own the data. They've got the data. All you're doing is comparing current data with historic data. You're not making a forecast. What you are saying is that there is a probability that something might happen based on previous events, which are all in the public domain. I don't know. Yes, some people say they can predict earthquakes, but there are reasons why their statements are false. They are not based on scientific evidence, and earthquakes are part of a scientific process. Well, earthquakes are part of a scientific process, but then everything is part of a scientific process, because the scientific process they're talking about, as far as I can see, is about recording numbers, about acquiring data, recording that data, and then using that data to reproduce things. That's the scientific process. It doesn't matter if you're chopping onions in the kitchen on the countertop. If you've got a sharp knife and a blunt knife, and you take data how long it takes to chop an onion with a blunt knife, then you take how long it takes to chop an onion with a sharp knife. That's scientific process. If you write the numbers down and tabulate it so that it can be regurgitated at some other time to other players. For example, earthquakes have nothing to do with clouds, body aches and pains, or slugs. Did a 15-year-old write that? Come on, USGS. You're supposed to have intelligent people working for you that understand the English language and know how to use it. And Nothing to do with clouds, bodily aches, pains, or slugs. Have you ever met anybody that said, oh look, a slug, there's going to be an earthquake in Japan in 4 days' time and it's going to be a magnitude 7, it's going to be a belter? No, you haven't. They say that earthquake predictors aren't real predictors because they do not define all 3 of the elements required for a prediction. These 3 elements are what they have described. Hey, it's their ballpark, their game. They bring the toys, they call the rules. He who pays the piper calls the tune. And right now, it looks like the USGS and other bodies are very much paying the piper. Why? It's obvious. They've got a considerable investment in it. And when things go wrong, lives are at stake. Their predictions are so general, the USGS says, that there will always be an earthquake that fits. Let me just move my marker a little bit. Always be an earthquake that fits. There will be an M4 earthquake somewhere in the US in the next 30 days. Wow, that is general. That is thousands and thousands of square miles, and most earthquakes are 4 and below. There will be an M2 earthquake on the west coast of the US today. Well, oh God. If ever you looked at statistical maps, you would know that those earthquakes nobody's bothered about. I have been reporting the earthquakes from the previous day that were M4 and above because they are the earthquakes that I felt could be of value to people that could use their own common sense to then to decide what they were going to do in their location with their knowledge. If an earthquake happens to occur that remotely fits their prediction, they claim success, even though 1 to 3 of the predicted elements is wildly different from what occurred. Therefore, it's a failed prediction. Predictions by non-scientists. Why can't scientists do it? Does it have to be non-scientists? Usually start swirling around social media when something happens that is thought to be a precursor to an earthquake in the near future. Have the USGS got something against social media? Social media is the glue that has become more and more dominant over the last few years. And right now, the USGS spends an absolute fortune making sure that social media is absolutely very well aware of everything that they are doing. They rely on social media just as much as everybody else does. So you can't blame the use of social media by non-scientists as being, oh, this is just horrible. But anyway. Listen to this guy. I'm not in the States, and this is a channel called CNN, and I do understand people like Mark Dice and the like find that CNN and the other stations, well, iffy, to say the least, or to say the most. However, let me share this with you just for a second. Bear with me. Let me give you some sound. Chad Myers, CNN.
Depends on the distance you are to the earthquake epicenter. An early warning system for earthquakes is expensive and also complex.
Now, this is in the public domain. They put it on their website. Their website is 4 earthquakes in 48 hours. Is the big one coming? And this is from geography.org.uk. Oh, my people. There we go. What's he saying anyway?
Part of the problem is we don't have a system that can predict the Earth is going to move. Our warning system is based on the fact that the Earth is already moving, and then if you're farther away from that epicenter, we can give you some time to prepare. Some minor time, but some time. Unlike a tornado warning where a Doppler radar can see the rotation and issue a warning before the tornado, an earthquake warning happens when the Earth is already shaking. Another limitation is how close the sensor is to the epicenter. If the sensor is 10 miles away from the epicenter, it takes 5 seconds to get to that sensor. So the more sensors we get, the better the lead time we'll get as well. If we get 10 seconds notice of an earthquake that's happening, especially a big one, you can open up the elevators on the nearest floor. You can stop trains. You can stop all those things that are moving before the shaking.
Well, this is all about earthquakes that have already happened. I'm not exactly sure how this ties in with what the page is, but 4 earthquakes in 48 hours is a big one coming? I don't know.
Is going at 2 miles per second. So if you're 30 miles
But
away,
anyway, let me get to the
your warning
point.
could be 15 seconds. It's 15 seconds.
All they're going to do there is show you how you can buy time and yada yada yada. What on earth? This map shows the density and magnitude of seismic activity since 2150 BC to present time, projected on a gridded equal population cartogram, a distorted mappy. Right, to get to the point, earthquake prediction is not impossible. Earthquake prediction is a very valid tool and is used for today by an awful lot of people to save an awful lot of lives. Hopefully, when the big one comes, it's going to give time for people to get out of elevators. It's not going to give you time to get in the car, load up the family, go and pick your husband up from work, and then clear off across a couple of states to get out of the way. It won't even give you time to get into the car, but it will give you time to open some doors and to get outside. That's fine. Long distance earthquake programming, that's not so good. Now then, I'm not going to suggest that Dutch ever did what I'm about to show you. One of Dutch's suggestions was that one earthquake can effectively, let me just click that off there. One earthquake can effectively lead to another earthquake. I don't know if he's right. I don't know if he's wrong. I don't have the skills in that. But I've got Earthquake 3D here, a commercially available piece of software. It's not a bad piece of software. And on it, as earthquakes come in, it shows up on the live feed. My word, Africa is big. There's England. That's where we are. And that's like Africa, huge. No, anyway. So, Earthquake 3D, a nice bit of kit. It can show you where earthquakes are and what's happening and all that sort of good stuff, you know. And I was looking at the earthquakes today, and let me go back to the beginning of the day. Looking at M4s and greater, there was a 7 on this particular day's evidence there. There was a 7, and then there was a 5.5, and then there was another 5.5, and then there's a 5.5 up in Kamchatka. And I thought to myself, let me just clear off the depth on these so they sit on the surface and mess around with the sizes and that sort of thing. As you can see from this side on the left here, I've got 4s and above selected. There are other earthquakes on the map, but I'm not showing those because I'm just trying to stick to the ones we're actually currently using. So here we go. As I say now, we start off with a 7, then there's a 5.5, a 5, and then another 5.5 up in the Kamchatka Peninsula, and it's a pretty linear progression. And I mean, if Dutch was watching this, he'd probably say something different to me, but when I watched the time rolling by, there was another earthquake a few hours later, 5.1, and a 5.3, and a 5.9, one after the other, daisy chained, popping along like, just like, you know, kids coming out of school, one after the other, boom, 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 boom. And I know that some people would like to say, well, look, there's a 7 there. These all add up to this, and this adds up to that, and there's going to be another big one, and it's going to be right on the edge of that line there, because that line has got these earthquakes on this side, and that information, that pressure is moving along, and there's probably going to be another earthquake on the right-hand side there, like a 7, just out of Alaska. Whoa! Let me run that backwards, and they clear up one after the other, and they start off one after the other. And each one of these is an actual, genuine earthquake. I 100% guarantee that. Well, that kind of got me shook up a bit, really, looking at that, because I thought, well, you know, you can't be that sort of, you know, you can't do all that and then get away with it if it's not real. And this is Mexico. This bit's Mexico. Got Guatemala and Panama and South America. And watching this mature through the day, there's a 4.3 and a 4.9, and then later on in the day we had that other 4.9. These are all genuine earthquakes, every single one of them. And then we had a 4.9, and then a big one, a 6.9, probably a 7 downgraded by the 0.9 society. Well, with that kind of evidence, you know, you can't say anything else than the pressure flows along the map, dropping off earthquakes, regularly spaced, regularly sized, culminating in a big one. Well, that's the one that everybody fears. If we put the rings up, we can really get an interpretation of the size of these things. These are genuine earthquakes. And it's just surprising, but Earthquake 3D is a tool that some of us use because we can have different maps. There's a population map. There is a, I think that's an altitude map. I'm not sure, I don't know on that one. And then this one shows the plates. And look at this, they pretty much line up to the plates all the way along. So the plates around the Ring of Fire and around Indonesia and the Philippines and Fiji and everywhere, it's all pretty accurate. But this data movement, that's just, whoa. If I wanted to, I could say, that's unreal. And then I've got to come clean because it is unreal. And here's why. This piece of software requires data to be brought in, and currently if I look at my feed is a local file. At the top of the screen here it says local CSV, comma separated variable file. I could have gone to the USGS and picked a 30-day, do a refresh, it will go off to the USGS and it will pick up the earthquakes from the USGS. It's trying to do a connect at the moment. And when it's connected, it'll return those earthquakes and display them. And then I can use that as a model to come to conclusions. Let's see if it ever does connect to it. Looks like the yard camera's getting busy. There we go. It's not connecting. So let's do that. Refresh. Okay, it's not refreshing, so we'll stick to where we were. We were working from a local CSV file. Open, and there we go. Now then, these earthquakes are genuine, absolutely 100% genuine. However, what I did was then went into a spreadsheet type document and manipulated that data so that I could influence what was being displayed on screen. And if I was a bad person, and I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that Dutchsinse ever did this, and if he did do it, then oh, I'd be mortified, I really, really would. But let's take that very first one up here, 7.0. First one on the list there, and that has occurred at, well, it looks like it occurred first thing, M7, 10 kilometers deep at 0102 AM. 0102 AM. Let's turn that down to its original size, 4.9. Save that data, then do a refresh, and look at that, it's a 4.9. And these earthquakes here, the changes that I made, apart from the size there for the video, let me change that back to a 4.9. Save that, and that refresh. There you go, 4.9. These earthquakes actually occurred at completely different times, but all in the last year. Because that data is available. There's plenty of it available. So if we were to talk about misusing models and misusing data, yeah, boy, we could write some scary stuff. We could certainly hoodwink people that were ready to want to believe, and that's not fair. I don't think that's ever fair to fool people for personal gain. That's not right, it's not fair, and it's not something that's to be done. However, that data, if I've manipulated it here, other people could manipulate it. And why not? I mean, it's out there. But if we look at probability, let me just close that down. because we're not going to get anywhere with that. So I'm going to bring up my web pages. Here we go. We're going to go to search earthquakes. We're going to look at the earthquake catalogue. I'm going to look at the area for 2018, September the 10th. I'm going to go back to January. Oh no, I'm going to go back a year. Go back a year. So that's 2117 to 2118. Minimum is going to be 4.5. No, it's going to be a 4. Minimum 4 and a maximum of a 4.9. Middle of the road earthquakes, fairly common. I'm going to go for the whole world. I've got my times in. Let's do a search, see what we get back. We recommend 2,000 earthquakes. Okay, well, it's going to give me too many earthquakes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that down to 4.2. Now do a search. Still too many. Good grief. Modify the search to 4.1. No, I don't want to do it to a 4. Minimum of a 4, maximum of a 4. Search. There we go. We got something to come in now. Here's what I'm on about. Let me change that grey screen there because that's going to interfere with the. Let me go for terrain. There we go. Reasonable image terrain. All these earthquakes are absolutely genuine earthquakes. And the big thing about this is that the data is in the public domain. So we can look at the frequency with which these are all level 4 earthquakes. We saw that just the plain 4. Not 5s and 6s and 7s and 1s and 2s, just 4s. And we can see straight away that there is plenty and plenty of slip activity all the way down the side of the United States. It's never getting a chance to bunch up and produce the really big earthquakes. That's a good thing. But look at this, the Aleutian Trench. Just so busy, 4s everywhere. Little hotspot just there in the Gulf of Alaska. But you could predict that in the next 4 days there's going to be a magnitude 4 anywhere here. And it's not a prediction. Statistically, you are going to be 100% correct. If I was to change that to magnitude 7s and above, there's 707 earthquakes there. Let me change that. And we're going to say maximum or minimum of 6 and a maximum of 8. Oops, of 6. Minimum of 6, maximum of 8. Search. Let it get the stuff. There we go. Now these are big earthquakes. 6.1, 6.5, 6.9. There's a 7.1 there at Isle Hunter. That's quite recent. 6.2, 7.1, 7.3. These are the earthquakes we need to predict. I don't care if it's the government predicts them or if it's Joe Schmo in Indiana predicting them. These are the ones we need to predict. We can't predict these without knowing what the supports are. Nobody in the world can predict these. These are completely random. There's no pattern, and if we were to plot them out so we looked at the frequency and the way that they occurred one after the other, it just blows your mind as to where the next one's going to be. Let me come down the list a little tiny bit and click one at random. Africa, Vanuatu, somewhere near Fiji, middle of Russia, Vanuatu, the Kermadec Islands, Tajikistan. It's random, it's completely all over the place, you can't predict them. What somebody could say is that there's a reasonable probability that at some time in the next month we would have a 7 or an 8 or a 6.5. That I can go with. Is it earthquake prediction? No. Is it earthquake forecasting? No. Is it using the existing data and interpolating it in a manner that is acceptable to the professionals that own the data? I don't see how they could argue with it, to be honest. I was going to put a video together tonight to debunk earthquake predictors because of the misuse of scientific phrases. And that's the bit that upsets me, being a bit of a scientist bent myself. Actually, I'm an electronic engineer, specialised in digital telecommunications for a very, very long time before I retired. And I recognise BS when I hear it. And I get sick and tired of people going on the internet and saying, oh, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, this is going to work, that's going to work, da-da-da-da-da, and inventing bullshit phrases to support their claims, because then you know straight away it's fake. And what upsets me is the number of people that get taken in by this because they don't have the scientific knowledge that I've got. And they can't see that it's fake because everything screams at them, this is real, this is genuine, this is what we've got to do. And it's totally wrong. Anyway, I'm going to call it for that. My name is Kiz, and I was going to do an earthquake prediction for an earthquake prediction debunking video, but I feel for a young man in the middle of the States that has been doing his very best, he's doing his hardest to try to make a science work. He hasn't got the education, he hasn't got the technical knowledge, and he does lead himself astray with invention, pure invention. And I think that's been his downfall. And he's scared people. He's scared people silly. Which means that the good stuff he's done has been lost in the chatter. That's life. It's part of the learning curve. So instead of earthquake prediction, maybe we should be looking at using probability and maths and existing data modified by new data to come up with new subjects. Or new not predictions, make new probabilities. And keep records. Keep accurate records every day in every way. Keep a written record and let other people have access to those records. Get your records out on the net. Make sure it's transparent. Make sure anybody can pick it up, read those figures, see the results and calculations you used, and then they can't argue with it. Especially if it's their data you're using, they can't argue with it. Anyway, my name's Kiz. I'm not going to keep on rattling anymore. If you've stuck with me for this long, thank you very much. If you didn't stick with me, you wouldn't hear me saying this anyway, so fait accompli there. I hope to catch you again one day soon, and I'm going to sign off. Hope this finds you well. Please like, please subscribe, please ring the bell, and let's see what happens in the future. Bye-bye.